Hi, it's Matt Bisogno here again. It's the evening of the 26th of January 2022 and it's time for another Golden Nuggets. In this episode we're going to look at one of the big races tomorrow, maybe the big race, the Goths, I don't know how to say this word, Thyestes Handicap Chase. Anyway, it's a good race, a very good race in fact, and a full field of 18 normally contest it, and what I want to do in this video is we will look at the race in a little bit of detail. I haven't got any preconceived notions of how that will go, but what I wanted to show you was a way of finding some trends information for the bigger races. Now it won't work for all races, because not all races have a unique set of conditions in terms of our query tool, but many of them do, and the Thyestes Handicap Chase is one. So why don't we have a pootle on over to query tool. I'm just going to open that in a new tab here, like so, and let's look at all of the data we've got since 2009. So if I select this date button here, that's just going to populate the from date as 2009, and then what I want to do, I've got to define the race conditions. So this race is at Gowran Park and it's a 3 mile 1 furlong handicap chase. So if I punch those details in, that might be enough already, and it might not be. So I'm going to select the course, Gowran Park, race code is chase, handicap chase, distance is between 3 miles and 3 1/4. We don't have a specific 3 mile 1 furlong distance in query tool. If I click generate report, I've got 34 winners, so that's too many races. So I need to be a bit more specific. This is a grade A handicap chase, which essentially is a class 1 race, and it's run in January. So I could use either of those things. If I let's do race class first. In fact, if you sort by if you group by the parameter, you can see how many races there are, and we can see that there are 14 class 1 races, which sounds about right. Maybe there's 13, I'm not sure, might be 14. We can also group by month, and we can see there are 13 in January, so actually that's what I want. I want the January, so I'm just going to say January and click generate report. Now I've got 13, I don't need to group by that. And if I just check the filters button here, I can remind myself of what I've selected. Gowran Park chase, handicap chase from 3 miles to 3 1/4 in the month of January since 2009. That sounds right. Now the next thing we need to do is to double check we've got the right races, and the way we do that is by going to the qualifiers tab here, and if you sort by position, you'll put all the winners first, and we can just, it's a bit of a faff, but it only takes a minute. We can just click in the winner. That's the Thyestes Chase from 2010. You can see they're not in a convenient list, chronological date list, so that's Thyestes 2016, 2020, yep, Thyestes again. And to save going through these, I mean, it was going to take like 45 seconds or something, but I have checked these already and they are all they are the right races. So we've got 13, the last 13 renewals of the Thyestes Chase now in query tool. Now if you wanted the last 10, you can just mess around with this date range. You could change that to be 2012. In fact, why don't I do that quickly, and then you've got 10, you've got the last 10 if you wanted to do that. So so that's a way to get the trends superset, essentially all the runners that ran in the Thyestes Chase in the last, well, since 2009. And like I say, you can do that for lots of races. You can't do it for all races because sometimes there isn't a kind of a unique identifying race condition. So in this case, the combination of handicap chase, Gorham Park, January, Class 1 and the race distance enabled me to narrow down just to this group of races, but sometimes that won't be enough. So that's a limitation at the moment. What we're going to do as part of the Query Tool upgrade, we're going to do a lot, but one of the things we're going to do is we're going to add a race name search. So excuse me, essentially you can add a part of the text string of the name. So if you put the word Thyestes in, for instance, it's probably only going to bring up these races, and that's going to help filter down to the unique race that you're interested in, and you'll be able to create your own trends information. So how do we do that? How do we get trends information? Well, we use the group by button. So in this case, there's not really, I mean, I guess it's interesting to look at what the going has been, and we can see that typically it's been, well, it's always been soft or heavy or somewhere in between. This year the forecast is soft, so that's in keeping with history. The number of runners, it's always pretty much always 17 or 18 runners. One year there were a few less than that, but we're not really getting any insight from the race conditions components. Where we get the good stuff is in the runner category and the variables in there. So we can look at, for example, trainer form. So I just check the radio button on trainer and click generate report, and that's going to give me a list of all the trainers who have had runners in the Thyestes in the last 13 years, and I can sort that by, for instance, each way percent to get try and get something meaningful there. And we can see here that we've got Mullins and Elliott, predictably enough, dominating with 7 wins from the 13 years between them. And if we sort by runs, we can look for, you can see that Mullins and Elliott have also dominated the entries. They've had 84 runners between them, whereas somebody like Noel Mead has had 13 and 3 placed, which is a fair effort, knocking on the door. So that's that. Not really anything to note there apart from that Mullins and Elliott are predictably well represented. And of course, if we look at this year's renewal and sort by trainer, we can see that Elliott has 5 in the race, and Mullins has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. And they've each got a reserve also, which I've greyed out down at the bottom here. So so far so meh, not really telling us anything. We can look at the age of the horse. So just to be clear on how I'm doing this, each time I select a different variable with the radio button, I then click the generate report button again, and that changes the data. This is sorted by runs. I just want to sort it by group, so I've got age from low to high. We can see that winners have come from all ages, but what's interesting perhaps is that 6-year-olds, 2 winners from 5 runners is I mean, it's a tiny sample size, but it's kind of interesting that these horses, they're probably I'm from memory, Jacadam was one of these. In fact, why don't we have a quick look at that? If we just do 6 to 6 on here, we can see who all of them were. Yeah, Jacadam was one, and Cocoa Beach last year was the other. Jacadam was a very precocious young French import, and obviously went on to run close to winning the Gold Cup twice. So in the 2015 renewal, when he won, he actually carried 11 stone 10. It was a pretty fine effort for a 6-year-old. So that's, yeah, so the 6-year-olds are an interesting angle, albeit not one that with such a tiny sample size you could sort of hang your hat on. If we look more generally, 7 and 8 year olds or 8 and 9 year olds, that they provide the vast majority of runners, but haven't really performed to that level of numerical representation in terms of winners. If we look at the impact value column, that tells you kind of how each age group has performed in winner terms against their representation. And again, you've got to be really careful here because we're dealing with very small sample sizes. But the things to note, I think, are that I wouldn't be saying don't back a 7, 8, 9 year old, of course not. But what I would be saying is don't discount a very young or a very old horse, because they have outperformed their numerical representation. Certainly 10 and 11 year olds and 6 year olds. The older group still have yet to do anything of interest. Again, going forwards, one of the things that we will be adding into Query Tool is percentage of rivals beaten. So that will be much more instructive in these small sample sizes than win and each way strike rate and impact value numbers. But that's something for another day. What else have we got here? We've got gender, and we can see that small number of mares have run in the race, and a couple of them have placed. Nothing really of any note there. Odds, just can't quite get that in the window. Let me just do make them the other way around. There we are. We can see the biggest price winner since 2009 was 25 to 1. There was also a 20 to 1 and 316 to 1. So the huge priced outsiders are unlikely to well, again, they've probably done no worse than what was expected in a sample of sort of 25 runners. But more materially, the top of the market, horses which look artificially short in the context of an 18 runner handicap chase, have actually done pretty well, and would have made a small profit if that's the way you want to go. So again, not a huge amount to take away here. Odds rank, so odds rank 1 is favourite, a couple of favourites, a couple of second favourites, and joint favourites these are as well. Excuse me. Again, we can see the top 4 in the market, and joints have won sort of 7 of the 13. But there's something to go at for those who like to tangle at a price. Headgear, no equipment seems to be the order of the day. Blinkers, not a bad thing. Again, not really huge amount to go out there. Weight be an interesting one, and this is sorted. I just sorted it now from top weight down to bottom weight, essentially. And as we saw with Jacadam, carrying a big weight is not necessarily a barrier to winning in this race. We can see that those rated 11.6, in fact 11.4 and above, have done pretty well. And if you wanted to make a fairly no-brainer angle, there's one right there. Just take that off. You can see just about half the winners carried 11.4 or more, and they were sent off at reasonable prices. Now they're going to be the good horses, of course. And there was one other interesting angle from these variables, and that was pace score. We can see how this race is typically run. Now I've been looking at a couple of these. I was looking at one at Lingfield the other day for their Sussex National, and I learnt that all 3 of the previous winners had either led or raced very prominently, and it was true of the winner on Sunday as well, the Galloping Bear. I think he was he 8 or 12 to 1 return. So he also either led or was right up in the van all the way around. In these staying handicap chases, it's definitely an advantage to be out of trouble and near the front. And we can see that in the case of the Thyestes, we've got 3 of the 17 horses that led or shared the lead. actually went on to win. And we got another 6 who raced prominently. That's what the 3 group is: 4 led, 3 prominent, 2 midfield, 1 held up. And these nulls are where we were unable to score them. Things like whip round at the start, took no part, things like that. So we can see that 9 of the 13 winners either led or raced prominently. And if we look at the impact value, again, we're dealing with small sample sizes, so always keep that in mind. But we can see that basically of those held up, only 1 was able to win, and the smallest each way percentage of 15 there as well. So if you fancy one that's a hold up horse, any horse can win, of course. This one horse won, but 79 did not, and 68 failed to make the frame. So I'd be looking. My takeaways from this are that I'd be looking for a horse. The balance of percentages, the percentage play is what I'm trying to say, is to look for a horse that's either it's going to be on the front end anyway. And of course, we can't know that in advance, but we can use recent history to project that. So I'm actually going to rather crazily try to come up with, this may very well bring back no search results. So I just want to do that and see what we got. So if we just did 11 stone, in fact that's a bit arbitrary, so I'm going to go with 11 stone. 11 stone and upwards, and a run style score of lead or prominent. And we get 4 winners from 29 runners and a profit of 14. Now what I actually want to do is I can't do that in the query tool because it doesn't know what the pace score is going to be in tomorrow's race, because QT's good, but it cannot foretell the future. One other thing to point out here, which I don't think I've mentioned before, is we've added these PX proximity form to the inline form on the card, and if you just hover over it, you can see that in this case it's red and it says 1.96, and that 1.96 is the lengths beaten per furlong. So we can see that he ran in a 20 furlong race last time at Limerick. In actual fact, it was as you can see there on the right hand side, it was a 19.73 furlong race, and he was beaten 38 3/4 lengths. And if you divide 38.75 by 19.73, you get 1.96. So that's how we work that out. Obviously, when the horse wins, that's easy. And then there are, excuse me, there are gradations in between. So that's kind of how that looks. It's not always the case that when I'm looking for one. Here we are. Yeah. So we've got a horse here that was beaten nearly 6 lengths, but over 3 miles. And that still qualifies, because it's less than a 1/4 length per furlong. It still qualifies as a green, even though the horse was 4th. So proximity form is another way of looking at the form that isn't kind of the ordinal finishing position, if you like. So that's that. That's all I wanted to say, really. To be honest, I haven't got a clue what wins this, and I'm probably just going to make the video longer than it needs to be. I'd be interested in the old boys and in the field. Brahma Bull might be interesting for Willie. Didn't really figure at all in that Tremor race behind Alboom Photo the other day, but his form is over further than that recently, and yeah, he ran pretty well the time before in the Ladbroke, finishing 3rd, albeit beaten 29 lengths. He'd be interesting at a price, but really, there's loads of them interesting. I actually think that Eclat de Rire, you've taken a bit of a chance after the P last time, but I think this horse probably, well, we'll see tomorrow, but I think he still might be a Gold Cup horse, and obviously he'd have to go pretty close in this race, as Jackadam and others have done in the last 10 years. So that's enough for today. Just wanted to show you how to add some trends colour using Qt, and introduce you to the proximity form in line on the card. Good luck if you're betting the Thyestes. Good luck if you're trying to pronounce it. This is Matt Bisogno saying thank you very much for watching as always, and goodbye for now.